Today we get a look at what's going to be coming next week with a bunch of points drops for some key units. Let's take a look at what Warhammer community have shown us. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're looking at a few points drops that Games Workshop has deigned to show us from the new chapter approved. First of all, this very much means that there will be decent points changes in the new book. I think it was always going to be likely, but it's good to have confirmation that it's not just a reprint in print of the ones that came out in January. It looks like a lot of factions will be being rebalanced, though as expected the ones that we've seen are only for ones that didn't have their codexes just recently released. I suspect that any of the more recent codexes won't have had chance for a balance pass yet. In any case, let's take a look and see what we've got. So from today's Warhammer community article, here are the points changes that we've seen. First up, Land Raiders of all stripes seem to be dropping 20 points. They're down to 265 points from 285, certainly a unit that I think needed a points cut. Now at least they're a bit more durable and damaging for their points, though I still think that their rules are going to be somewhat unhelpful. Even at a lower, more efficient points cost, they're still going to be trundling around with a whole load of expensive guns that risk getting tagged in melee. At least when they're a bit cheaper, they'll serve their transport function a bit better though. Games Workshop have confirmed that this will be the case for Chaos Land Raiders as well, including Thousand Sons. I'd imagine that the Custodies Land Raiders will similarly be dropping 20 points, even if I think they'll still cost a bit more because they are venerable. The other quite welcome Space Marine change is the poor Storm Speeder. These things were just ludicrously overcosted for how fragile they were, and for the cost they don't really hit all that hard either. We don't know the exact cost for the Storm Speeders, but apparently they're now going to be around 135 to 160 points, down from the 150 to 170 that they currently cost. Depending on the model, that's around about a 10% points drop. Certainly no bad thing for them, they're just a bit too fragile to really be worth considering at the moment. Hopefully at least this will balance them out against land speeders a bit, but unless attack bites with multi-motors have taken a points bump, I still think that they're likely to be the go-to option. Next up we have some good news for the craft worlds. Both Wraithblades and Wraithguard have dropped. The Wraithblades going down to 37 points from 40, and the Wraithguard going down to 35 from 38. Again, a fairly reasonable buff, an 8% points cut on the squad, and again I think a very reasonable one, particularly on the Wraithguard. I'd say out of the two, the Wraithblades still look more interesting to me though. At least with their invul saves and decent melee damage output, they really are a unit that you can build around quite a lot. You can stack some nice durability on them with things like Fortune and Protect, and now as they're tanking their way up the field, at least they'll be a little bit more efficient. Next up we come to the Necron Immortals, which have a bit of a confusing post on the community site, as they seem to imply that they're going down in points, but maybe give slightly mixed messages between them and the Necron Warriors. The only details that we have are that they're now 4 points more than Warriors. Weirdly enough though, we already know that Immortals are 4 points more than Warriors. Typically Warriors are 13 points, and Immortals are 17 points unless you upgrade to the Tesla Carbine. Not really too sure what to make of that at this point. It either means that Immortals with Tesla have decreased, sorry not Gauss as I wrote here. Maybe either gun will both be worth 17 points now, rather than the Tesla being costing 19 points, or just possibly that maybe both them and Necron Warriors have both dropped in points costs. A bit weird this one. I'm not sure whether it's Warhammer community getting something wrong in some way, or whether there's just more information that we're not privy to yet. In any case, if they aren't messing up, and Immortals are indeed 4 points more than Warriors, it would imply that this leak that came out earlier in the week is indeed fake. This image has been circulating where it looks like Necron Warriors went up to 14 and Immortals dropped to 16. To be honest, changes that I could see Games Workshop kind of reasonably making, even if it wouldn't be very popular with people who have a lot of Warriors. I was a bit skeptical of the source of the picture, so I didn't post it on the channel. It just looks a little bit digital to me, and when they list +1 point for the Immortals Tesla Carbine, it's written as +1 points rather than +1 point singular, and in previous chapter approves they usually write it as just +1 point, not 2 points. Still, with Warhammer community being a bit confusing, this either could be right or it could be wrong. We're still going to have to wait and see. Finally, last but not least, we have a 2-point cut to Genestealers and Pure Strains. Tyranid Genestealers tumble from 15 points down to 13, and Pure Strain Genestealers go from 17 down to 15. That's actually quite an appreciable drop of around about 13%, the biggest of any of the ones that we've seen here. For Genestealer Cult, the Pure Strains maybe aren't quite at the heart of their army at the moment. They tend to be a bit inferior to things like Acolytes and Aberrants. However, I think that the change is really quite interesting for the core Tyranid Genestealers, which are looking far more appealing right now. Genestealers really are one of the big synergy units that get a massive value out of various buffs, including the Swarm Lord being able to rocket them forward all over the board. At 13 points per model, you could have a unit of 20 of them for 260 points, and it'd just give you a far better feeling about hurtling them up, throwing them into combat, and doing their thing to mash enemy infantry to death and tie up everything else. I have a feeling that this might see Genestealers return to more competitive Tyranid army lists compared with now. In addition, we have a few more details about the Thousand Sons and the Grey Knights, including them having released their updated points values to download right away, as the ones in the new chapter approved are temporarily incorrect. I'll hopefully try and cover those in a video later today once I've had a proper chance to go through their points things and see if anything's changed. In any case, certainly interested to see what you have to say about these changes. For the most part, I think that all of these units definitely deserved a buff. It's just going to be interesting to see what happens with those Necron Immortals. Finally, I thought we'd just round up the video by talking about some of the changes to secondary missions which were previewed earlier in the week. The secondary match play objectives are one of the biggest factors in determining which armies are strong and weak, and Games Workshop have shown us a few important changes to them, as previewed by a bunch of tournament players who as normal have nothing but positive things to say. Generally, the message is that the secondaries are going to be a bit less all or nothing, a bit more granular and progressive, so you get points for doing plenty of actions rather than either getting all the points or none of them. And some of the ones that have been taken far less have got a bit better. Apparently, Investigate Sites has been changed to Investigate Signal. This is the one where you have to do an action within the centre of the board, and you need to do it a few times repeatedly to score max points. Before, it was kind of rubbish because all your opponent had to do was try and ping one unit into the midfield every turn, even if you could kill it straight away. Now you can do the action, and provided you shoot dead all the enemies within the centre of the board by the end of your turn, that action won't fail. That means that if the enemy wants to stop you from doing that action, they'll need to put in some significant resources into the centre of the board. Maybe things like really durable units that you're not going to be able to wipe out. Seems like a big improvement, as I basically never want to take that one normally. Another interesting change is the change to No Prisoners, which has replaced Thin Their Ranks. Thin Their Ranks was the one where you got 1 point per enemy model destroyed and 10 points for big vehicles. You now score points per the amount of wounds inflicted rather than models destroyed. It means that it's a bit more takeable against things like, say, mass Space Marine infantry, where now you could get, say, 3 points for killing a Gravis Marine or a Blade Guard veteran, as opposed to the 1 point that you'd usually get before. This could now be taken as an objective to kill armies that are a bit more elite, so maybe you could be taking it against Space Marines, where often previously you'd very rarely have secondary objectives that would be able to score you max points. Finally, we have a change to the very often taken Deploy Scramblers objective, the one where you had to do an action both in your deployment zone, the midfield, and the enemy deployment zone to get you 10 points. Apparently it now isn't all or nothing. You'll get some points every time you perform the action, but you also need to do it in 4 table quarters rather than the deployment zone related things. I'm going to guess if they're changing Deploy Scramblers at all, it's probably going to be a small nerf. This one was almost always taken as a very reliable secondary that you could almost always score 10 points with, provided your opponent couldn't screen out their entire deployment zone. I guess having to do more actions will make it a little bit harder to do. I guess how strong it will be will depend on how many points you achieve by doing each of those actions. In any case, really looking forward to going through the secondaries when we have the Grand Tournament mission pack out. Although maybe not quite as shiny and exciting as the points changes, it really does make quite a big difference to how the game is played. So let me know what you think down in the comments below, both of the points changes and the new secondaries. Look forward to hearing your thoughts and ideas, and anything else you'd like to see out of the new books. Stay tuned if you'd like to see an update on the Grey Knights and the Thousand Sons, hopefully later today, and feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. Finally, if you have enjoyed the video and you'd like to help support me and keep these coming, I'd just like to mention that the channel has a Patreon page, which is how I can afford to make quite so many videos quite so regularly. If you are enjoying a lot, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, such as seeing certain new videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry to the prize giveaways with the chance to win some big model kits every month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support the channel, then the link is down in the video description below. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.